guest, his name is Dan Olson. And if we could also spotlight him, that would be amazing. And we're going to be talking about exploring polarity through the tarot archives. So some of you guys are friends with, or excuse me, archetypes. Some of you guys are familiar with tarot readings and tarot cards. And we have somebody here, Dan, who is an incredible expert with this. And he's also really amazing with understanding the archetypes, because these cards don't just come from nowhere. They're all based in mythology and story. And this is also going to relate into us becoming our higher self, our inner king and queen, our inner monarch, right? We have the butterfly, the biggest and the best butterfly that we could be, the monarch. So that is the purpose of this conversation. So Dan, with that, thank you for being here. Welcome to Emergence Festival.
Oh, wow. Thank you for having me. This is so lovely to be here. I was around for some of the talks and experiences yesterday, and just a lovely community you guys are creating. So thanks for having me. Hi, my name's Dan. It's great to meet you all. I am calling in from Oregon, a little farm town about an hour outside of Portland. Calling today from my tiny house. It's quite tiny, as you can tell, but I love it here. And it's taken me a long time to get to a place in my life where I feel like I love it and I am like at home. And been a long fucking journey. I mean, a lot of heartache in my life, probably like you in a lot of ways. We all share that. My background, I wanted to work in advertising forever because I've always really into ideas. And I found that archetypes, the Jungian type, the tarot type, all the types are really a great way for us to explore and kind of talk about these stories, and also like to really see ourselves. So I used to work in corporate branding. I've worked a lot for big dumb companies that I don't want anything to do with. But I learned a lot of like their secrets along the way, and how they put their effort and energy into seeing themselves. And I found that my true passion in life was to help people see themselves. And a big part of this was because I struggled to be seen myself. And I struggled to let myself be seen. And so I had a lot of heartache around that. And I found that helping businesses see themselves didn't really resonate with me, but helping people see themselves, like, oh, no greater like bliss in my life. So I'm a photographer basically now in Oregon, but I also help personal brands see themselves, find their authentic essence, and pull out their themes so that they can actually get a very clear sense of who they are and take that information to a designer or anyone and claim their truth and own it and talk about it. So if you want to do any of that kind of shit, I'm your guy. I love geeking out on that. Check out my website, iseeyourmagic.com. Another really important thing to me though is healing work. It's probably the most important thing. And a big part of my life is I work with a men's group called Brothers of the Moon. One of my co-partners, Aiden McCarthy, I see you down there, brother. I love you. I'm so glad to see you today. And a big part of like what we try to do is to help men soften, to come out of their heads and into their hearts. And actually, Aiden and I have co-created on our last week of this 12-week journey that we've created called Deepen Your Gravity, where we've taken a group of men through these archetypes that I'm about to talk to, and nuanced them out by adding more information and kind of rounding them out with elements of the books like Way of the Superior Man, which if you haven't read it and you want to know about your man and you want to get him like working up, they're great. It's like each chapter is a page long, super digestible, super potent, really great work. We also worked with another really important book that a lot of you already know about, that a lot of men are trying to have a lot of opportunity to learn about themselves through, which is The King, Magician, Warrior, Lover. And if you haven't read that and you want to know a little bit about your own masculine within you, like I highly recommend checking that out. So point is, we all have masculine and feminine within us. And my charge has been to soften into my own feminine so that I can like actually live my full masculine and vice versa. And soften my masculine so that I can live my most feminine too. I think that I was very like rigid a lot of my life. I grew up in a place where there was a lot of gang violence, and it wasn't safe for you to just be or to go outside. And it took a lot of softening because there was a lot of mistrust in my heart from that. And I also had some homelessness as a youth, some deep abandonment wounds, and all of it has given me the opportunity to like really look at like where I hurt so that I can heal that. And part of that gift is that I can alchemize that medicine and offer it to other people as well. And I know, and you know, that the masculine is over rampant in our world in general. And I think a lot of us can use to like come like just bring it down a little bit, right? They say the future is feminine, right? The future is now, and we're all like trying to let that emerge. And Brothers of the Moon's charge is to really hold space for the feminine within ourselves, within our relationships, and for our lovers, our partners, our daughters, our even our sons, our mothers, whoever. So today I want to take you through a little bit of a journey of unpacking basically the first bit of the tarot. We're going to go through the first 7 cards. And the reason I want to do this is because the tarot is something that everyone can identify with. We don't know where it came from. It's like basically timeless. All of the elements they repeat again and again from Jungian psychology, that we see them in all of our favorite movies. So from the Akashic perspective, we are all deeply in touch with all of these. We've all lived all of these things already. Like there's only one Akash, like, we've all lived all the lives in a way. And so this is a way for us to kind of like take account of that and to kind of like look into our own selves and imagine what it means to, I don't know, re-identify our polarity so that we can actually have relationships that work, relationships with ourselves, yada, yada, on down the line. So I'm going to do a little bit of some screen sharing with you guys because it's just easier for me to kind of show you the pictures since we're working with the tarot. Can you guys all see my little thing there? I see your magic. Is that coming through? Yeah. Okay. So that's me. I use a lot of different types of tarot decks. You guys are probably all familiar with this one. This is like the oldest one that I think we all know about, but I also like to use the Osho Zen deck. There's the Usi tarot deck I really love, but for today's purposes, we're just going to focus on some of the Rider-Waite imagery. So I want to start with I was going to start with the Fool actually. And Chelsea, the Fool is the 0 place, but the Magician is kind of like the most, it's the number 1 place. But the Fool is this place of divine inspiration and absolute trust, this place we all start out with where, when we're young, we all come with divine aspirations. The Spirit's just working through us when we're kids. We're ready. We're right there. We want to like do the thing. But as we go on, we learn a little bit about mistrust, and we learn that there are some rules and some laws that we have to engage with. And the Magician is the second step, is that Fool who has now learned to master different elements of that are within his space. So the Magician is one way I think about the masculine. And then I'm going to go in here to talk about the High Priestess next as a way to kind of discuss the feminine in our lives as well. So here, if you look at the Magician card, you'll see that he's pointing up with one hand and down with the other. And just to unpack this, I'm going to really get into the symbology here, so work with me. The hand that's up toward heaven is basically, he's a conduit. He's saying like, I take the divine inspiration and I bring it manifest here into the earth, into this garden. And this garden has all these red roses and these white lilies. And the roses, you're going to see these again. The roses represent desire and sensuality, and the white lilies represent basically wisdom. So on the table in front of him, he has all 4 elements of the tarot laid out in front of him. He has the swords, the cups, the pentacles, and the wands or the staffs. And each one of these represents something that he's come into mastery with within himself. And each one of them represents an element as well. So the pentacles represent earth, the material, all that we can like see, touch, taste, feel. And the swords represent the mind and our thoughts. The cups represent our emotions and how we feel, how we receive. And the staff or the wand represents action, the actions that we take. So in this case, he has them all laid out on the table in front of him, and this shows like some element of mastery. And he's got this infinity symbol over his head because he's basically he's in touch with the knowing that everything is nothing and nothing is everything, and here it is right now. So the Magician card is this, I think, a really important card for like the launching of this. If I could like synthesize our whole like Deepen Your Gravity program that we've created, I think the Magician card really does this well, because there is a warrior element here. He knows action, and he knows how to show up. He knows how to like hold the course. He knows how to receive inspiration with the cup. He knows how to like be a master of his own feelings. He's also knows the precepts of actually creating and manifesting material wealth and material foundations here on this earth, as shown with the pentacles. And then he's also very aware of his thoughts and that thoughts turn into things. And so this is like basically the prototypical kind of balanced human. And I don't want you to think about him as being a man necessarily, but just representing like the yang of like the duality. And that's really what I want to get into, is the duality that exists between the magician and the high priestess, but how that is like fundamentally within ourselves as well. So again, we all have masculine and feminine, and it's up to us to kind of like source that out, suss it out, and like tease it apart and figure out what is us and what is not, and what we want to develop, what we want to cultivate. And the other thing I love about this card is that the magician has cultivated this beautiful garden all around himself. He's absolutely like in the right place where he's supposed to be, you know, like he's made his home for himself. So now that he's done that, he's ready to kind of go out into the world and do all the things. So next card, of course, then is the girl, right? The high priestess is the magician, but in a female form. And there's a different kind of magic going on here with the high priestess. The cross, the equal-sided cross over her heart, basically represents that like the high priest, whereas the magician knows how to bring it outside and into the world, the high priestess knows how to go inside to connect with the divine that is within and to call that out. So the masculine needs a mission, it needs a vision, and it needs a mission for it to act. And oftentimes the high priestess is the conduit for the masculine to actually get in tune with that message. So a couple other things are going on. There's a lot going on here with this thing, but you see the moons are everywhere, right? She's got them on her hat. She's got one at her feet. So this suggests that she helps us understand phases, especially phases of our lives, phases of our own cycles, phases of our own expansion and contraction. And she's also very, you can just tell she's attuned. She's like still, she's also like in her flow, as you can see with this blue kind of gown that drapes around her. And that this gown, this blue water that's going on in the background.
There's no picture. Oh, I only see the magician.
Oh. Does everyone see the magician?
Yeah, I think it's still on the magician side.
Oh, interesting. Thank you. Can you see it now?
Yeah, now I can.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Sorry, I moved the windows around. So let me go back. So you can see there's a lot of moons happening here with Our Lady. And she's also holding a scroll, right? It says the Torah on it. And this shows that she is really in tune with the laws, like the natural laws, but also the spiritual laws. And for us to really be in tune with those laws, it means we really have to know how to go inside to check in with our intuition and to also experience the true truth that can only come from like a deep sense of knowing. And so that's one reason that the high priestess is holding this book of truth. And she also sits between these two pillars. These two pillars are basically from the Temple of Solomon, the Temple of Wisdom from the Bible. So she's basically the third pillar to that. These hold up the edges, but she is almost like at the entrance in the gate. So to come to, this card kind of suggests that in order to come to wisdom, we have to pass through the high priestess. So the high priestess is this, she is like a channel from within herself. And the pomegranates behind her on the tapestry that's up there, those represent like feminine fertility, right? The vulvas and lady body parts. But the thing that's different from the next slide, the Empress, is here you see roses, where here you see pomegranates. So this is much more about virginity. It's much more about purity, as you can see from like the white around her too. There's just like a lot of innocence. This card helps us to see that we have this high priestess inside of ourselves that we can always turn into in order to get a better understanding of right and wrong, where we're going, the actual laws of truth that we want to abide by. And when we can bring the magician into our view and balance these things, we can do a lot. And this often happens in partnership, right? Where I think I feel like most of the people I know are unconsciously or subconsciously looking for this in some way. I want to have someone who can like take the vision and make it manifest in action. And we want to be able to rely on each other to help us do that in different ways. But we all have skills. We all have ways that we help each other. We all have a magician to reinforce the other person's high priestess, right? But we can also work on developing that for ourselves. So anyway, the magician meets the high priestess and they fall in love, right? So the next card is the pregnant empress. Now she's basically gone from a maiden to a mother in this card. And in this way, she's much more into her sensuality now. She's much more in tune with she's able to unfurl. I forget who said it yesterday. I was in one of the programs or workshops. Someone talked about the woman is the feminine is the flag and the masculine is the pole. And the flag can only unfurl and like play in the wind when it's grounded by this masculine. There's another really great poem called The Tent. I think it's by Robert Frost. And he says basically in his language, the woman is as a tent supported by a single pole. And it's only when the wind blows that they see all the places that the tent is anchored down, and those all represent the relationships of their friends and family, which is kind of a beautiful metaphor because it shows that it's not just one and one. It's one and one as it like is anchored to a village, as anchored into community, right? That's why things like.
And are we able to ask any questions too?
Oh yeah, totally. I'm sorry. If there are any questions, I would love to hear them. I don't even have my chat on over here. I should get that.
It's okay. I think we just have one right now. And if you have a question, you can raise your hand and I can say it. But Randall, if you'd like to ask your question.
Yeah, Dan, can you speak more about what the full moon on her headdress and the crescent moon on her foot represents?
Yeah. So in terms of like why it's at her feet, the moon at her feet, and this crescent moon, that shows it's basically talking that there's that all of the changes, all of the phases rest at her feet. And she is completely aware and attuned to the changes, the phases. For example, oh man, I've been really mourning, you guys, because not all of the blossoms, but the blossoms on my cherry tree outside have all turned into leaves, right? But I have to know that that's going to happen, right? And then in that morning, I was also like, oh, but these leaves are going to turn into like, they're going to die and they're going to fall off, and then it's going to be winter again. And then I was thinking like, and then it's going to snow, and then it might flood in the field again, and then it'll happen again, and it'll all happen again. And the feminine is especially attuned to that when she is in her fullness. Oftentimes, we all have the feminine within us, and oftentimes we suppress that attunement, and we suppress that, we suppress our ability to foresee the things that will come, and for us to be patient in what is now, because the masculine typically wants things to be the way that they are. So the full moon on her head is about illumination. It's about seeing the truth, and it's about having being able to walk in darkness as well. So she's much more of a luminary, right? So the high priestess in ancient times was basically like a different type of queen. It was they were you were born into it, kind of a thing. So it was a very special position for them to be in. So the ability to illuminate the community and the truth around them. Yeah, good question. Thank you.
Yeah,
oh yeah.
Yeah, because so the crescent moon essentially serves to remind us that this too shall pass.
I like that.
And on the deck I was showing you earlier, the Empress is the one with the crescent moon instead of the High Priestess. I just find that interesting on my own tarot deck.
Yeah, symbology is a funny thing, right? Because it's really all in the eye of the beholder, and there are a lot of interpretations. It changes really quickly, even from one to the next. There's for example, in the Emperor card, there's a lot of Emperor cards that have him looking straight ahead, but the old ones have him looking off to the side, which we'll talk about in a ways. So there are all sorts of different impressions and reflections of this stuff, but I think that overall the little symbols really only add up to larger themes, right? And the theme of the High Priestess card is about receptivity, is about intuition. It's also about stream of consciousness and attunement as well. So I think that, like, when I'm really in like my artistic side, I'm downloads all the time, right? I'm just like, oh, I see that vision, I see that vision, I see that vision, and it's like my hand can't write fast enough to get them all down. And that's kind of basically the way some ways like the oracles were used in the past, or the oracles were embodied in the past. It was just kind of constant stream of conscious flow. It was like almost seemed like crazy talk to some people, but that was the connection. That was in some ways the divine coming through that we have to cultivate and make space for within ourselves. So yeah, wow, we're already pretty ahead here, but I wanted to do a quick breakout room for us to do, like, basically I want to break off in pairs before we get going a little further here. We're going to go through the Empress card next, and then the Emperor card, and talk about how this young love blossoms into a mature reciprocal romance that is able to take on everything that comes its way. But I'm really curious to know, and I'm really curious for you guys to also introspect and maybe talk with each other about, of these two archetypes here, the Magician and the High Priestess, what elements do you identify with in your life currently? And again, you are both in different ways every day, and there are all sorts of other ways and dimensions to break apart this polarity, which we don't have time for. But I'm interested to know how, because there's a lot of action, right, in the yang. There's a lot of waiting and patience in the yin. I like to think about the best blend that I've been able to picture is ecstatic dance, where I'm like hearing the music and it's instantly transformed. This inspiration is transformed into movement, into like some sort of like embodied action. I feel like that's the best example of like of a working relationship between my own masculine and feminine. But I'm interested for you guys to explore how this looks in your own lives. And I was thinking if we could each take maybe 2 minutes. So go in there, introduce yourselves, and maybe just take 2 minutes talking about how you feel about the high priestess as it shows up in your life right now, and also, or the magician as it's showing up in your life right now. And I'd specifically like to call you to think about with the magician, the different elements, because there's a lot of mastery, there's a lot of hard work, and there's a lot of commitment and a lot of discipline and a lot of formulas and recipes and doing in the magician. And the high priestess is a lot more allowing and knowing and being and receiving and attuning and watching. And so we're always in states of change here. So I was hoping we could take just a few minutes and break off into pairs, and you guys could just unravel this together. Does that sound like something you could do? I think it'll be fun. So yeah, tech admin guys, if you want to help us, we can break these off whenever y'all are ready. Might be a little earlier than I anticipated here, but yeah, I think Randall, can you help us do that? Or somebody? Who was it?
Yes, Randall's going to be creating the breakout rooms. It takes a second to get those created.
I need to be co-hosted.
Oh, yeah, sure. Sorry, my bad. Yeah, no worries. Well, here, I'm gonna go back to this magician one real quick while we're talking, just so you guys can see this as well. Also, desire is a really important thing for the magician as well. So I'd like for you to think about how you are cultivating your desire as well, and what kind of knowledge is available for you in your external environment that you can bring into yourselves right now. Oops. It's nice to get a little reflection time, right?
So are we bringing in the Empress, or is it just the High Priestess and the Magician?
Just the High Priestess and the Magician for now, and we'll talk about where the Empress and the Emperor, how these two archetypes turn into the Empress and the Emperor.
Amazing, awesome. Randall, would you like Jessica to create the groups? Is that going to be easier for you? I think you're on mute.
I was not made a co-host.
Okay, we'll have Jessica do it. She'll make them. Thank you. How much time do we have inside of the breakout rooms?
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
So 2 minutes each to share your thoughts and feelings. Bonus help if you want to reflect back what you heard that person say. That's juicy shit. Always feels good.
I love it. I see all of you guys with your amazing meals. Elisa ended up bringing mine up here, so surprised we were in the same house. You probably figured that out. Okay, so we're gonna put you guys into these breakout rooms, and you can continue eating and doing all your things and being yourselves fully. And if you decide you don't want to be in a room, you can just send me a message. But otherwise, we're gonna put everybody in a room. Okay, we'll see you guys in 5 minutes. Okay, amazing.
Will we be doing another breakout?
No, this is the only one. Sorry, that's yeah.
Yeah, we didn't have it marked about the breakouts for your session, so I apologize for not checking in on that.
That's okay. Yeah, whoever checked me in asked me, but yeah, it's okay. We're here now.
Yeah.
How do you guys feel about this? Do you have any thoughts about how I would love to hear what you guys thinking about for the High Priestess or the Magician, or any feedback you have so far.
Yeah, I think this is really cool. I'm just even thinking like how I would answer this question because it is I think that you look at these every day, and I definitely like watch tarot readings, but I'm not super like like in it with understanding all of these. So I'm just like thinking like my first thought was the magician is it's I almost see him as like the jack of all trades. And then you called him the master, and I was like, I wonder what I'm a little confused at like what his role is, and then like if it's the same as the high priestess, is it just the maiden? And it's like, what is our relationship to our inner child in a way?
Mm. Yeah, the tarot start the inner child is the fool. So if you this whole thing is the first 7 cards are the basically our ascension into being a human so that we can go out and do the rest of like the minor arcana and then go through the rest of the deck.
Okay.
And then we'll have like our own karma from that. So we start out as the fool, and then the magician can't live a fool forever, so he has to actually learn some shit. And that's what I mean with mastery. So he's trying to we don't all master this stuff. Most of us don't even consciously practice it. But once he masters these things, then he's actually more available to the to be a sovereign candidate for someone who is, you know, of heavenly divine inspiration, like the high priestess. And then he grows. So he also, if it was a man, would soften in that card to see his own divine feminine. And then he would become, you know, more in touch with his love. The emperor, you'll see, the emperor is a shitty king unless he's connected to his love. And that's what the Empress card is about.
Okay, that makes sense. Awesome. And I saw like Kayla, I saw that you just joined. We're just in breakout rooms right now. If you'd like, you can chill with us until the next breakout room, and then we can put you in. Actually, this might be the only breakout room. Okay, so that makes sense. So the magician is, it's not necessarily, I guess when I think of maiden, I think of almost like the connection to our inner child, but it's not necessarily just the inner child, right?
Yeah, it's actually the inner child has to always be present for these things to actually work. But the high priestess is much more in touch with the divine, and the divine versus the inner child, I think, is like a big question for people to reconcile, right? So I think that the way that I think about it is the divine spirit is essentially pure and already available in the inner child. So there is like a similarity there, and the inner child will keep that spirit alive as a conduit if it's able to stay open. And so the high priestess, though, actually has a much more kind of thoughtful approach. Not thoughtful, more like maybe a more sophisticated approach to accessing that through her own intuition and through actually being able to go inside and ask the deep questions, not just like spontaneously emote like the divine child, but to actually, you know, use the pendulum, so to speak, and say like, what is what? How do I feel about this? What is the real truth? That was, yeah, that's good questions though. Anyone else got anything that's coming up for them?
I'm sure everybody in the breakout rooms do.
I wonder what they're talking about. I was gonna do a quick little like check-in, see if anyone else wanted to share when we come back from these, but
I think that'd be helpful because I know that Gigi is like really into tarot, but I'm sure that for some people it's like very new, so this could be helpful.
yeah,
Okay,
it's foreign ground.
and it'll automatically bring them back.
Dan, can we talk about that story and the scope of how these two cards relate to the human experience involving the tarot?
Can you hear Jessica's question?
No,
No, she's muted.
She basically asked if you could talk about how these two cards relate to the journey. What is it?
The journey of the human experience of evolution, human evolution through the tarot.
Yeah.
So like how it relates to the Fool and what basically told Chelsea in the beginning of that talk. I think it's really good context.
Good call. Thank you. Will do. Yeah. Awesome. Welcome back, everybody. So we had a really nice little breakout here. I want to give a little bit more of a contextualization as we get going forward to how this kind of these cards show the evolution of a single soul in the tarot deck. But before we go, I was wondering if there's maybe one or two, maybe three people who want to share anything that came up for them, or anything that they'd like to say, any reflections that came out. You don't have to either. It's okay.
I got some thoughts.
Oh yeah, Gigi.
So I'd say from at least for me, I feel like you go through these different stages in your life, and sometimes you have to go back to revisit some of them. Like right now, I'm trying to revisit the Magician at the same time as working with the not the Empress, the High Priestess, in a sense that I'm seeing things for what they are, but also trying to look within to be able to see what can be possible.
Mm. Yeah.
Because for the longest time, I guess I subconsciously blinded myself to what I was really seeing in front of me.
Mm. I love that. Yeah, the High Priestess is one that can actually show us what is possible when our vision is like obscured, and the Magician is one who can see it too, but in a different way. I love that you talked about going back and revisiting this stuff, because it's never done. We've never fully mastered anything, and when we think we have, it's probably time to like go back and double check, right? Yeah, that's really beautiful about going back and reconnecting with those different parts. Thank you, Gigi. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to add or contribute? All right, we can move on. Thanks, guys. So as I was saying, basically the first 7 cards, oh, here, I want to show you these real quick. So I got them all right here, right? And I want to show you a fun little thing I did. I made these all into my business cards as well. So if you want to, so you never know what card you're going to get, but usually everyone gets the right card. It's really strange. Aiden knows. So anyway, we start with the Fool here, right? And these are the 7 cards that we go through in order to actually get to a place where we can go through life. So I'm just going to lay them out for you guys really quickly here. There's the Fool, who is just like pure trust. The Spirit is coming through. Think about like the divine child, right? And you can just see the Spirit working through them. You don't need to ask like who, like you get it. You can see their personality already. As we go through life, we can learn to mistrust, but also we can't go through life just like, you know, we have to have some skills, right? So the Magician then teaches us some skills, basically, right? We learn a lot about not only physical mastery, but spiritual mastery, emotional mastery, psychological mastery. And these things help us to become a candidate, basically, to meet the High Priestess to a degree. The High Priestess helps us go within ourselves, to soften and to experience the direct channel to the divine that, you know, really doesn't need anything, but really cherishes the container. I heard it said, well, I'll tell about this in a second. After that, the High Priestess becomes the Empress, right? So now we are like, we've found love. Now we are gestating. Now we're actually creating a baby. And from there, we become the Emperor, who is the sovereign creator. And I want to talk about this because I think it's got a bad rap. So the Emperor card, then we end up falling in, whoops. So the Hierophant, basically, think about this as like almost marrying us, or like showing us the everything else that is. And then there's the Lover's card, right? These people fall in love, there's reciprocation, they go on to learn to love each other, and then they get in this chariot and they drive away into the rest of the deck. That's basically the main story of us as humans, right? And then there's all these other cards: temperance, strength, justice, yada yada, that you've seen. So we have to like learn about all of those things as well. By the time we get into the chariot, this means we've graduated high school. This isn't like you're ready to like go live, like this is like you're ready to go try some shit. You're no one still. But all of these cards have some different ways to show us how we can show up in this world, and how we can progress from one to the next. And as we're talking about with this festival, the heart of relationships, we can learn a lot about how to be in relationship. And a lot of that comes from how we are in relationship with each other, and what we can expect, and what we can offer, and how we can support, and how we can receive in relationship with another. And I think that's really evident in these two cards, the Magician, and then the High Priestess. So we've talked about the Magician and the High Priestess now. Someone made an interesting point. Chelsea made a point. She thought this was got kind of a little more of a jack of all trades kind of a guy, and I used the word mastery. He's attempting mastery at all of these things. I'm not saying that he necessarily will get there. There's a lot of like shitty magicians that you know. Maybe I'm one of them, but a lot of us are, we're really good intellectually, but not so good physically. Really good, with our emotions, but maybe not so good with like our thoughts and organizing our thoughts. So there are all these different ways that we can bring ourselves into balance, and it's a lifetime of a journey. I mean, the Magician looks very regal here, but he's actually still got learning to do, possibly. We can always go back and study up those old textbooks, so to speak. So the High Priestess is much more about the inward journey and the attunement to the grand vision, the knowing of the laws of the universe, and being a direct channel for that. And then we're going to get to the Empress now. So the Empress, now she's pregnant, she's with child. There's a whole world to be birthed here. And a lot of what she gets to do is be patient. There's a lot of red, there's hearts in this card. There's a lot of femininity in here, but it's also she's very much a ruler as well in this card. And that's because she finally feels safe. Oh, this one's small. It's been said that when the feminine feels, I think it's actually the masculine divine through the feminine, and the feminine feeling safe in the masculine will allow herself to open up and unfurl, kind of like that flag, right? And so the Emperor card is a type of security, a type of ordered blessing that he is able to bestow, to create enough structure so that she can feel open to be herself, to allow all of the goodness to come through. And when they work in this way, they actually become a real power couple, because the Magician, if he's not connected to his heart, he can be a real dick. He can be a black magician. He can be a dark magician. He can be, up to all sorts of no good. And the same is true with the High Priestess. The more that we are able to connect in with our hearts and actually bring love through these archetypes, the more that we can actually fully express their light. But each one of these also has a lot of shadow aspect as well. And that's something for another topic, but just be aware that when we're not in our fullness, when we're not in the light of these aspects, there's also shadow there, and we can feel the shadow come in. So some of the shadows, for example, for the Empress are feeling like a type of grasp, like a clinginess or a graspiness. It can feel sometimes like possessive, or it can feel even a little bit catty toward other women when it's trying to protect its own thing, when it doesn't feel actually safe. And we've probably all met women like that before in our lives, who were queens in their own right, but catch them on the wrong day, and you don't necessarily know what you're going to get, right? And the Emperor can be that way too. The Emperor can be cruel, unjust, he can be unwise, he can be completely self-centered. And I think we've seen like plenty of that in this world, and from movies to politics to our families to just the patriarchy all the way down. It's oppressed us all, and it oppresses itself in a way that it doesn't even realize. So the Emperor card, let's see, I think this next one shows it. Oh wait, it's this one here. You might be able to see that too well, but the Emperor card is actually looking at the Empress card when you put them next to each other. And this is because the Emperor is in love with this woman. And although he is sovereign and like has his own shit together, he's still very much, a lot of what he does for the good of this union, to keep her happy and to keep safety and to keep community, or communion between them alive and healthy. I'm going to go back here to this Emperor card real quick. So also all the red here, a lot of action. There's a lot of fire going on with the Emperor card. But another important thing here is, even though he's sitting on the stone throne, it's very, very hard, very rigid. He's got a lot of like rigidity, and he's able to he's got some force behind him. And it's got a little bit of like a sharpness. And if he's not connected to that heart, then the fire will just burn too hot. So you probably can't see it, but basically running behind the throne at the very bottom is this little tiny stream. And that stream actually continues on from the Empress card into the bottom of his card, showing that the stream of consciousness needs to continually run into the Emperor's life, or he'll become stagnant, he'll become closed down. And then all sorts of like nasty shit can happen. So I want to talk about the Lover's card real quick, just because we're running a little short on time, because this is really what it's all about. In this, there's just so much stuff going on here. They both have their own tree. It's like a kind of a depiction of Adam and Eve. But that mountain in the background is something that I always overlooked with this card until recently. That mountain represents self-actualization that exists between the two of them, and it will forever kind of keep them apart if they're in like the most holy ways that they long for, if they're unable to do their own work to climb to that peak together. So Eve on the left has the garden of delights and good and evil behind her, and Adam on the other hand, the 12 flames on his tree represent the knowledge of good and evil, of black and white. And so these two brings together once they're always overlooked by this divine benevolent force who wants to give them everything that they need to come together and to have like this peaceful union, this peaceful holy experience. And it's powered by the sun behind them, the ultimate source of creation. And if they can actually bring their thoughts together, bring their lives together, as the clouds kind of demonstrate, like in the ether, they can get on the same page, they can get in the same values, they can really do a lot for each other. And this card is, we think about it just being about love, but it's so much more. It's about reciprocity. It's about giving and receiving, but it's also about nurturing. And it's not necessarily sacrifice or compromise, but creating these win-win-wins where all things are lifted by the two of them coming together. And when they can do this, the chariot awaits. It's like they get married and they get in the car, it says just married, and the tin cans going down the road, and then who knows what's next. But the chariot's a really beautiful card because it just symbolizes the beginnings and the road ahead, and that you've actually achieved, that you've come a long way and you've done the work, and now you're ready to head out with on your path. So let's see. Yeah, going back to the Empress card, that little waterfall and that little stream of consciousness that's coming through is something that, there's more femininity in here than masculinity, obviously, and I'm used to talking to masculine audiences. But one of the things I think is really helpful for the masculine is when we can actually connect with our softness. And oftentimes we really rely on the feminine to take us there. We rely on it too much, just as the feminine relies on us for creating other things like a sense of security or a sense of safety or a sense of whatever. And we can all create that within ourselves, but we all have the opportunity to give it to each other and to explore it with each other. And how beautiful and how much fun is that when we really get to do it. So yeah, I think that that's basically everything I wanted to talk about, but I know it's kind of a lot of information, and the tarot might be new for some of you. Yeah, it was new for me once too. And I know I've just kind of made you drink from the fire hose. It's a beautiful story that exists in the tarot, and you can always turn to it. You can always find some sort of meaning in it. And it's just like reading, any good story. Art is in the eye of the beholder. I might read it one way and you might read it another way. And there are little bits of symbols, little moments from stories that really usually stand out to us that make us say, oh shit, I didn't even think about it that way. That was like an insightful little bit. And the tarot just has a lot of like little bits of insight that we can get if we choose to reflect on them. One of my favorite decks is the Osho Zen Tarot deck, because it like cheekily calls itself the transcendental game of Zen. And really this shit is just a game. Like my life, this whole thing is just a game. And there's all sorts of little clues and little bits that we can tap into and tune into if we're willing to actually listen and open up our eyes and our ears and look for clues that were not, maybe that are unordinary, that we, it's a lot of it's about purposeful action toward an unknown or unseen goal. And I think that the tarot gives us a way to kind of tap into those things, kind of like using a pendulum or flipping a coin. Even once you flip the coin, you'll realize if you wanted to go to that restaurant or not, because you'll be like, oh no, tails, right? So it's all just a way for us to kind of get down to, I think, our spirit's knee jerk. It's kind of like in human design with like if you have a strategy to respond, getting that guttural or it's that same kind of experience when we unpack this stuff. Anyway, I just want to leave it open for a few bits of questions or reflections or insights. Thank you all. I know this has been a lot of information. You've all been really great. Tried to fit a lot in, but hope it wasn't too much. Perhaps it was. Thoughts, reflections?
I had a reflection. Even though, so it wasn't a lot of information, but I really liked how you acknowledged some of the different symbolism behind the tarot cards, because that just started to bring it to life. Like when you're showing the high priestess and you showed the pomegranates, or how like in her crown she had the moon, and then how that's illuminating like light and darkness. And so it's kind of nice. So even if you don't know all the information, you can look at the symbols to kind of see what's resonating and where that's going. So that actually brought some of those archetypes to life for me that I had never connected with. So thank you for that.
Thank you for that reflection. Yeah, the symbols, man. Signs, everywhere are signs. We're like I said, I used to work in branding, and it's tiny little things like a color, choosing between royal blue and light blue can signal a whole different cascade of thoughts and emotions about a logo, a look, a brand, the way a product is placed or something like that. And it sounds minuscule, and it is minuscule, but they all add up. And all these little symbols, if we start to like pay attention to them and look to them, which is really what the high priestess and the magician ask us to do, is to, like they say, a wise man learns from all things and all people. Smart person learns from experience, and a fool learns from, or a fool already has all the answers. So if we just kind of like keep it open and look at all the different things that are out there, we can really start to make a better picture. Any other thoughts, questions, reflections?
I had one. I found it a little bit difficult to relate to the high priestess internally with my own, I'm aware of feminine and masculine in myself, but I wasn't really able to draw correlations from the high priestess card so much. I think partially I see the high priestess in my friends. and other people that I know. And so I'll see those cards more individually archetyped in people rather than, and I understand and agree that yeah, they're all of me, but it's hard to get my head around that, I guess.
Yeah, thank you. I agree. That was one that I struggled with for a long time as well. I just kind of like looked past it. I had like a very surface level understanding of it, I think. I'm so glad you brought that up, because I just realized there's something really important that I wanted to talk about with that card, and it's grace. The High Priestess has like an element of grace that can come through. And the High Priestess card asks us to allow ourselves to receive grace. And I heard it said from this Hindu monk that grace is like a river, and it can only reach you if you're downhill. If you try to make yourself too high on the mountain, grace can never reach you. And the High Priestess card asks us to look at the ways we can open ourselves up to grace. Personal example for me is I have a tendency to beat myself up when I have in the past had a tendency to beat myself up when I don't accomplish my goals or meet my expectations. And so many times that has kept me from doing what I actually wanted to do, because I in my head, I was like, well, if I'm not hard on myself, who else is going to be, right? And when the actual idea was to like, you know, I think about like a lover coming up behind me when I'm frustrated or something, and maybe putting her hand on my shoulder and just like saying, hey, it's okay. I love you. Everything's fine. And we can give that to ourselves, but also it's available from something much greater than us. And the High Priestess asks us to go inside to allow ourselves to receive it, to find it, because it's always there. Yeah, I love that song. Stick to the rivers and the lakes that you used to. Any other thoughts? 2 more minutes, last one. Well, hey, I'm gonna go ahead and give a little quick plug for my men's group then, because I know you all know dudes, and dudes need dudes to help them. I needed a lot of help this time last year. We've actually been doing Brothers of the Moon for a year and 2 weeks now. And my goal, I realized transitioning from a relationship that I wasn't as good at relationships as I thought I was all the time. And I realized I had a lot of to grow and expand and explore. So every Thursday and Monday, we get a group of guys together on the Zoom right now. We're going to be having an in-person retreat this summer, hopefully, God willing, and it will happen. And anyway, if you know any guys who are interested, it's a pretty cool group of guys. Like people like Aiden show up. Aiden's a cool guy. You can see him down there. He's looking handsome. Yeah, there you go. we got ex-Marines, ex-Cowboys, tech wizard people. I mean, I'm just like so impressed with the people that are coming through. So if
wait, you can never be an ex-cowboy. No, you're born a cowboy, you die a cowboy. No.
Yeah,
she's got a point.
She's got a point.
All the rest I'm with, and I think this is a great idea. I've been in recovery for many, many years, and I certainly see it as a recovery tool. Would be a fabulous men's group. So I want to support you 100%. But cowboys are always cowboys.
Yeah.
And no Marines are always Marines.
You gotta be cowboys.
That's exactly. Well, these people are all those things, but with a softer heart now. And that makes them, I think twice about how they label themselves, but I totally agree with you, because we can't shut those parts of ourselves out. So if you would like to send them our way, just have them come by our Instagram page. It's called Brothers of the Moon. And if they want to come, we don't even have a website. We just have this little Zoom link. That's always the same freaking Zoom link. It's brothersofthemoon.org. And the portal is open for 10 minutes twice a week. It's from 5:55 to 6:05 on the Pacific Standard Time, because West Coast is the best coast. Love you all.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Can we all take ourselves off of mute and rub our palms together And give Dan a big ashtahay.
Hasta hey.
Ashtahay, ashtahay.
To be here with you.
Say the time one more time. 6:05 to what?
Oh, it's 5:55 to 6:05, and then we close the door because we create a container that is closed and safe for everyone.
Integrity is required to enter.
So yes, I'm planning to share these with some boys that have integrity. So thank you.
Beautiful. Amazing. Okay, I love this. This is so good.
Thank you, Pastor.
So we are switching gears